Okay. You never know when these videos are going to start. But looky here. I'm just had a thought. Hey, I'm a Christian, and you don't see me saying just open your Bibles to pages. So you know why? Because I have it memorized. Anyway, I'm not a Christian who agrees much with the church. I do, their theology, but once they walk out the service, I like to go to church. One of my favorite places to be is in a church service. I enjoy all the singing, the worship, the community feel there at the what do you call it, fellowship in the service. And then when it's time to leave a service, uh, the common rule is don't share this with anybody else. Don't share everything we've enjoyed with everybody else because you can't hang around bad people. You can't do this. I got to keep an eye on you, make sure you stay out of trouble. All that kind of stuff. I don't believe in it. I can't do it. I can't do that. But so, I mean, I do. I still go to churches, but I've moved around a lot. There's other reasons I haven't gone steady, but that's not the subject. The subject is a few subjects. It's few random subjects. So I'm doing this while I have time on the phone, my terrible phone that freezes up because I don't have the new one ready. And anyway, I got four phones. I had bad luck with phones recently, but right now I don't have space on my other phone. But this one, hopefully, it works. It might not even work, and my phone may freeze up again just from doing this. So, but here's my subject. It's immigration. Part of my subject. I wanted to mention what is the part of life that doesn't exist in the news. The reason I get blocked is because I talk reality. Be quiet, phone, please. I should have shut off notifications if I could have gotten to that screen and within 20 minutes of it freezing. But reality is what we're not allowed to talk about. So, for instance, the streets don't exist in the reality of politics that we're allowed to talk about. Nobody ever gets killed in the streets. Okay, I'm not going to talk at it from that angle. I'll talk about it from the real, from being there, from knowing it. So, and from having friends there. Yeah, I said it. I have friends there. So, acquaintances mostly, but I found a few friends. When I say friends, probably a few true friends that have, they're trying to survive, and they treat their neighbors pretty well uh, compared to everybody else. I get no some that really do. They're just trying to get along and survive, and they from that the rough side that people don't escape alive a lot. So you have those streets don't exist in politics. We can't say anything about them. And so, what is immigration? People who immigrate here. What are some of those people saying? There are people out there in the streets. It's not everybody. They see these immigrants coming. They're like, "Hey, he has a backpack. I got me a new backpack from the immigrant." But so really, I mean, what are we bringing welcoming these people into? It's a danger zone that we created that doesn't exist. It exists when you're out there. When you're out there in it, it exists. And some of these immigrants are in danger coming to our country. Some of them are gonna become slaves to the groups of people who claim they're against slavery, who are always complaining about slavery. And then they're gonna go confide in them, and they're gonna be made out into a slave. So I'm glad to see it's mostly men and not women, because it'd be easier to they make slaves out of women with addiction and stuff. Or I don't know anymore. I really don't know. I'm thinking who really runs the drug cartels? Women? They might be. I'm not. We're not allowed to ask that. I might be kicked off Facebook for saying the word woman in that sentence, in the sentence of drug cartel, the American drug cartel. So I'm one of the few people in the world, I guess, that will talk that we have an American drug cartel. All right, but think about something. Think about so the Democrats are bringing all these people in. Now, I'm into bringing people in if we're helping them. If there's jobs for them. So, but what about all the people, the homeless in the street that we don't care about and we haven't helped? We won't give them housing. Apparently, we're giving it to them. So I don't know what all the Democrat leaders are benefiting from bringing these people in. They won't help people in the streets get into housing from America. So maybe they have a place for immigrants to go, and that's might be why they're not giving homeless people in America housing. Done, even people that qualify and all that for housing, affordable, low income housing. So we don't have low income housing anymore. Affordable housing available. We don't have low income housing available anymore that I've seen. And really, one reason people like low income housing though is because they can get their own room. The Democrats have made rentals so expensive in the free market that if you want housing, most people are going to have to get a roommate, and that's a not a desire. That's not desirable to have roommates unless you. I mean, for some people it might be. So it's not desirable if you get a bad roommate, and a lot of times that happens. So it's hard to know who's a good roommate. So there's a lot of those things that are real, and I guess I wanted to put forth the thought, you know, well, a few thoughts. The fact that the streets do exist in America, the street life, we'll call it the homeless, the gangs, and they're dangerous. I mean, you're not allowed to talk about. I'd like to say this. I would like to say this, but I would literally get stabbed or killed, probably, or it might catch them off guard. I do take chances and say stuff to people when I'm out in those circles, but I'll say, I mean, next time I hear people talking about they can't wait for Trump to go to jail because they say they'll kill him in jail and they're hoping he gets killed in jail. When I hear that kind of stuff, and they're not allowed to say something like that about a president. I've been thinking, don't you know, I'm not going to, you know, join this conversation. But I couldn't say anything anyway because if I showed any favor towards Trump, I was probably they're going to start a fight, and I would have had to leave where I was, and I was waiting to do something there. And but I would like to say, actually, I don't. Trump's not my favorite because I'm worse than Trump. I want him to be harder. He's not hard enough. So in a sense, I'm more conservative than Trump. I'm tougher even than Trump on abortion. But I'm more liberal than Trump on drugs. I would say legalize everything. So am I liberal or conservative? I'm very liberal. That's not liberal. It's actually conservative. What they're doing by leaving all the drugs in the streets and letting people poison the drugs and letting people steal from all the customers, letting people kill their neighbors. That's way too liberal. You shouldn't be able to kill people like that. Shouldn't be able to steal from people. You shouldn't be sitting there salivating over immigrants coming in because you're going to have some new people dealing drugs for you underneath you. So they're going underneath people. That's what a lot of them are doing. A lot of these are men. They're coming here hoping to get jobs. Some of them are coming. Some of them are terrorists, probably. I hope they don't kick me off for that. But we don't know what they are. Hopefully, most of them are, you know, going to be in a safe situation to where they are allowed to hear church. But I think the Democrats are going to take them somewhere. Just like that's the point. That's one point I wanted to bring up here. Specifically, this where are they taking these people to? Places like I've been where they're going to get stabbed if they dare to vote Republican. They'll get killed, they threaten to be killed if they even dare think it's okay to think about a Republican view. If and they use Trump they're using that's a brainwashing. They don't just hate Trump. Some of that might be an act. They use Trump and they use Bush to let anybody that would associate or think about associating with that be scared to death. Not be scared to death, but to know that they're probably going to get killed. They're going to get beat up or killed if they even dare think of voting that way. And then the same people threatening to vote, kill him, and all that for voting for Trump and Republican, those same people vote against the death penalty because they'll judge us for being for the death penalty. Well, we're for the death penalty for people who kill people for no reason, and we're not for that. It doesn't mean automatic. Like you go get hung day 2, day 1. You got time to rehabilitate, repent. I think, and it's got to be improved. Obviously, that the whole system needs to be improved, but nobody talks about this. We're not allowed to talk about it. Obviously, Facebook is trained that not to let me talk about these kind of things, not to let, but they do it because there's so many of us who are part of their customer base. Could call it customer because they make money off of commercialism and stuff. So they respect it some. They have to be a little concerned about their bias. Somehow they're not concerned about being so biased. They obviously block my pages because think about, I don't know exactly how all the pages get views, but ever since I did one post, it seems I've got no viewers on, and I've done a lot of posts, so they might be wanting me to start boosting my posts and paying. And then in the end, I may pick a post here and there to boost. But I have a project I'm doing, and I'm trying to learn the hymns, introduce hymns to people. I don't know them that well. It takes a lot to memorize real quick, and just mostly do the verses I know instead of learning new verses because it's like time just keeps ticking away. I haven't had, like I said, I haven't had time to think about taking a picture of my driver's license before I'm thinking of the next song, next whatever, next piece like this I wanted to remember before I forgot to say some of these things. And then I have other stuff I'm dealing with. And so you got in my personal life. So you have, um, and that's a busy thing too. So you got working on my health too, by the way. But I've gone through weight gain now. I want to lose weight, but I've gone through a dietary change, and it's taken time. I knocked this out of my diet, knocked that, been added a lot of healthy stuff to my diet, but I got fat doing it. And then I still didn't leave off the chocolate and the coffee. And come to find out, I have an issue with my arms, where my forearms itch. Right when I do certain things, and I didn't know what it was causing it. And once I quit doing chocolate and coffee somewhat, I cut back, and then I did this big chocolate binge day. The next day, my arms are itch. And then so I quit the chocolate mostly, at least the dark chocolate. Then I went back to and I had a big day where I did coffee, and I didn't mean to do a lot of coffee, but I had bought the instant coffee, and that coffee was too strong. And I literally, when I went to sing the medley, it was a pain because there was, uh, well, I hold the phone like this while I'm singing. Doesn't look like it. I'm doing that. So I think it's cool that it doesn't look like I'm doing that. But this medley was 5 minutes. My shoulder's getting tired, and I had sung it soft 19 times. I've never had to redo a song this much, but it was a 7 hymn medley, and I did every one. I tried to do it soft, like "Tis so sweet" instead of the "Tis so sweet" instead of that, right? And I did the soft all the way through, and just something happened every time. I had to redo it. One of the times I switched hands, I was doing a good recording, no mistakes. And when I switched hands, it cut it off, cut the phone off. Okay, hit the button. Forget the other times, but there was just like I made it through the song 3 times or 4, and my voice cracked at the end. Now that wasn't the day I did after I did coffee, or it might have been. Anyway, there was a day where after I did the coffee, it dehydrated my throat. That was obvious, and my arms itched again. Not as bad as with the chocolate, but the next day I noticed my arms itching, and so now I know. Now I know I have more. I already knew coffee's not good for you, and neither is chocolate, especially the strong. Too much of it. So now I know I can't rationalize. It's easy for me to rationalize. Say, oh, you're just doing a little. You need a little pick me up today. You're tired, and I'm gonna make it taste good too. It's easy to do that, but now I've learned after cutting back on other stuff. I saw specifically those dehydrated, and that somehow causes my forearms to itch. Which I don't know if that means I have poor liver function, but that used to mean stuff like that. It seems like I've read that once before, but according to the doctors, I don't have poor liver function. And 7 months ago, I don't know when I last saw a doctor. So 6 months, time's flying. But you have so now I know, and I hope I don't. I can figure out how to stay off of coffee, even tea and chocolate mostly. And if I'm not going to totally say I'm going to stop the caffeine. I hope I can, but I might get the caffeine pill, not the pill, but the healthy pill, the natural herb one that has 30 milligrams of caffeine. And that, but frankly, I do that to help me stay off it. But then, it can eventually keep me from getting all the way off of caffeine. So I might just do ginseng. And what else do I have? I have ginseng. I like ginseng, helps my memory. Oh, I have ginkgo biloba pills now. And I've never noticed them helping memory much, but the batch I bought this time, it's a lot bigger bottle than what I've had before. So I'll take it longer, see how it goes. I don't know if it could be one of those things like tea where they say, or coffee, when they say coffee is good for you, it could be one of those kind of things that doesn't really do what it's without the side effects. Doesn't do what it says without side effects. So coffee picks your memory up, and drops it, and then it drops it longer than it picked it up for sure. But so the coffee, they're dehydrators, and you're not supposed to have allergy pills technically if you're a vocalist. and it may have affected me. Anyway, I did the coffee real strong that day, so I saw the effects. And during that long song, I was hurting, shaking, couldn't, didn't have much breath. I was scared I'm going to have a stroke. That's what the day I did the coffee, and I was doing the longest, hardest song, and I ended up doing it. I say 20 times. It could have been, and it was did it, and I the last time I did it, I changed this whole style. I did just a loud chest voice mostly instead of the reflective style, soft. And because my voice was cracking at the end, I was like, I'm just going to sing it loud and get it done. And I like these songs put together, meshed together. So, the next day I decided to do, or a few days later, 2 days, yesterday, I decided to do them, break it into half and do 3 songs together and another 4 songs together instead of 7 in a row. And put the meaning songs that have the meaning together, put them in an order I thought was meaningful. And that was much easier. But I only did, because of time, I only did one take on each. And there's a couple things I would want to fix on them, you know. But time wise, I couldn't. So it felt better, and I was able to sing soft too. By the way, better, easier. I just didn't get to practice those that way, and so I did them, and because my voice was almost rehydrated. Today, I'd say it's got to be a little more rehydrated. Even haven't recovered withdrawal headaches yet all the way from the caffeine. So anyway, I hope to knock that out. I'm hoping to get back in shape, bring my weight down, and all that's in the middle of different things. But so the politically, I don't think it's fair. Those are educational points I just brought to people. I mean, there's some people that refuse to believe that coffee is bad for you, it'll do anything to you. And I could explain scientifically all that stuff. And then maybe I'll do a health nutrition video. I know all these things. I've just been through a lot of stressful times, and partly to my fault. And I have not stuck to my diets like I should. I have still known to keep water in me, keep good food in me, and I've gotten a lot of exercise until I started making these videos. The songs, the hymns, don't get as much exercise, but I needed to rest my foot. My broke foot's finally starting to heal, but it's still not healed. I thought it'd be healed by now, but since I was resting, so um, yeah, the society is not fair. Facebook is the best communication venue I've ever in history of the world, and besides prayer. Of course, we're not talking, but we can pray on Facebook. We share how to pray and all those kind of things. That's good. Share prayerful songs. We're still able to do that, but they definitely don't. They're not going to let those be advertised much. Now they do it because some people pay to advertise. Now, if they get a big enough following, or they get paid, they work together. They sometimes people get paid. I haven't tried to get paid for my stuff, but they get paid. They click for the paid button or whatever it is. I don't really want to do that because for a couple of reasons. Because they already blocked me. They're going to be pickier and block me even more if I do that because they're promoting my page so they can get commercials, and so I could get paid because they promote it. And if I get more, I don't know if for sure I'd get more of a following. That right now I might not, but in the future, hopefully I could get some following after I pick out the favorite songs, polish them up a little bit. And it's not, but the thing is, I'm not a regular singer. I'm singing to to reach a person that wants to hear that song. It doesn't have to be my voice, but the hymn. Like they might want to hear him and hear it. They might like hearing it a different way, and or somebody new might that doesn't believe in God or whatever. They like classic style music, classical. I'm some semi-classical. That's just the way my voice is. I can't help that. It's not. I'm not gonna say it's not my favorite. It's one of my styles I do like. I mean, that I like to listen to, but it's not my favorite. I probably liked jazz the most growing up, but I actually like to change it up, and I like similar to what I do. I like Flornell Harris style. So I guess uh, partly though because that's spiritual songs. So if it wasn't for the spiritual side of it, would I like Larnell Harris? Or if I was just, I would still like jazz and I'd still like opera somewhat. So he's a mix of jazz, opera, R&B. He can do anything, right? So I like and I like that the fact that he can do various styles with his voice. That's pretty neat. And so I was challenged, just like an athlete, challenged to try to hit high notes and all those kind of things. And my problem is I like a tenor voice. I always wanted to be a tenor. I'm not a tenor. So I'm calling myself acapella Bob just from a musical standpoint. It's not. It's probably if you want to hear an acapella voice, really, uh, nobody's going to think of a bass as being an acapella. But I want to be acapella because, like I said, I'm not here just to sing. I'm here to. I am trying to put my 2 cents out there in politics. I'm not going to stop doing that. I don't speak boldly about it because I want to sneak it in, right? Because that's what you have to do in order for it to be heard a lot. I mean, you can do it boldly and have all these other fights. You got to fight for your right to be able to speak. And I don't want my time to be consumed with fighting for my right to be able to speak. I still want to leave time to be creative, but when I get all my creative stuff out of the way and I realize, and I can uncover some mysteries and psychological warfare that's been hidden by lying about who's racist and all that kind of stuff. And then, so people, for instance, the streets are run, they have armies of people out there who might kidnap a lot of these immigrants, literally in a sense, and trick wise with drugs and stuff, and some bullying. If they go through homeless venues and stuff, they're going to become victims, and those things don't exist, do they? So we're not allowed to say that exists. That'd be racist to say it but it is. No, it's not just all black or white gangs. There's Hispanic gangs, black gangs, white gangs, Asian gangs, Indian gangs, and I didn't used to know that. American Indian gangs out there, and then who connects to who the most? I'm not going to speculate that. But you got all of them, but specifically probably Shelter Life. Most in a lot of cities, it's run by black gangs, I would say, and they're not run by Christian people who are helping folks that much. They just make sure the gangs keep having the power in there, and you can't. You're not allowed to speak. You're not allowed to speak about Trump. You're not allowed to do any of that stuff. Most shelters areas you're not allowed to because and Islam has taken over and used the you can't talk religion thing or whatever to take over Christian shelters and say pretend that charity comes from them. It comes from Christianity. So Christianity is the one that says love your neighbor and started all these shelters. Now, where the shelters have run into trouble is the ones that accept money from the government. They've ended up that's where the Islamic people and gangs have been able to take them over. And gangs and people, atheists that go in there, they complain about having a preacher and chapel and all those kind of things. And I've been through that, and I like to see. I enjoyed it when they had preachers, even if it wasn't a good preacher. I enjoyed those kind of things. But and I thought, at least it's given them some kind of conscience, and it did. I mean, because there's a lot of pretty rough people there. A lot of time. People stab people, and like, if you can't talk or say things in line. They're not going to tell you to be quiet. They'll literally have a stabbing. You know, it's common. It's not just. It's very common. It's most common though that you're not allowed to speak, and it is the gangs telling people nobody to speak, and that's not just because they're irritable. That's planned. It's out there. It exists, and that's what the immigrants are going to run into if they go through that venue. And they may be able to stand off. They'll have to separate, and a lot of them might do it according to ethnicity. To because that's I'm not going to go into who does that stuff the most. I'm not allowed to say that. European American, African American. So I can get kicked off if the Democrats want. They could kick me off for not saying African American. So some people act nowadays like, why are white people scared? I hate it when white people are scared to say black or white, black. Because but they are because the media will kick them out for it. If they at any given time they can call it racist to call somebody black, or they could call it racist to call somebody African American. They can switch it up, but generally, you know. So generally, though, so here's the thing. I'm going to bring this up right now. Is that I've seen white gangs, I've seen black gangs, but do I sympathize? Do I befriend? Do I hang out? Have I ever hung out with white gangs? No. I've always been befriended black gangs, and now there's a reason for that because I know that culture. I'm pretty sure I feel that the Democrats have dumped drugs. That's something I want to bring up. Government. People say government have dumped drugs in black neighborhoods and urban neighborhoods and this and that. And a lot of people will roll their eyes at that. Well, the truth is, You got to quit saying government did it. The Democrat side of government did it. They're doing it now through the border. They're the ones that always wanted corruption at the border. Why? Because they were dumping. It's true. They were the side of government that's dumping drugs in black neighborhoods, and I believe that's true. And I do. So I do feel there's more friendly people in gangs than there are in white gangs. When you get into white gangs, they chose that more than a lot of the black folks that are stuck in gangs, right? So now there's a mix, though. I'm not going to say there's not some. There's a lot of black gangsters that will straight up kill me on sight if I say one thing. If I say, if I just question them, why did you look at me like that? Why did you give me a dirty look for? You just mess with the wrong black guy. You don't mess with me. You don't question me. All that. There's some that'll straight up shoot me for something like that. But then there's a lot of nice ones caught in between, or they see that I'm friendly, and if they get to know me, they protect me from some of those, and then those guys have to brush it off. But then also there's more of where they have to be in. They got to watch out and not be seen talking to a white guy. It used to be. It's not as sometimes it's mixed now. It's not as bad, but most of the time, still in a lot of areas, that's where white gangs aren't like that. They don't have, they don't have to. They're not so prejudiced or racist. They're not racist. There's more racism in the black gangs where that you can't. They're scared to be seen talking to a white guy because their friends don't like that. But in the white gangs, they're not prejudiced like that. As long as it's a black guy that doesn't steal much, if it's somebody that doesn't steal and he's cool like that, they accept it. So the black white gangs are against stealing generally, but it doesn't mean they don't do it. There's a lot of them that do it through those venues. But here's my point: is yeah, I just you know I actually got into that world really really befriending people, right? People who uh, a lot of people won't befriend, right? So I viewed it from a Christian standpoint. I did. So I but the temptations are out there for me just like anybody else. But I reject the church that says doesn't let you talk to people. So I don't. I had a lot to learn. I'm not a fast learner either. Doesn't matter what I'm. I don't learn these hymns fast. I knew most of the hymns, but I used to play them on trumpet. I didn't know the words because I always played a trumpet to them. So I know one course of each hymn mostly. So I know the tunes mostly. So I'm still. So it's not an easy task to learn those hymns, and I don't like having to read them. It's harder. It's harder in a way, but um, than to have it memorized. But hopefully I learn them. I learn them more, especially the ones I like the best. And when I have time, I'll do more verses. Certain ones that had special verses, I did more than one verse. But anyway, plus I don't like long clips. So this is just a point to bring out, though. Is yeah, I don't think I'm wrong in my analysis, in my perspective assessment. I don't. I do think there's a. I think that frankly, I've not always stayed sober, and that's not a promotion. That's a weakness, and it's been a weakness at times, and some of it was just because I was afraid to hang out, not and be sober. I had to because you can't hang out some places if you're sober unless you're there for to deal or trick. I'm not into either one of those, so I'm not going to say that's my reason all the time. Once I learned things, but the way I was introduced to that culture first really was early on in college. Uh, well, I went to set up somewhere downtown for a junior senior prom and ran into the hood. It's like in a historic district. I ran into there's a drug dealing neighborhood right beside it. I'd never seen that before, so I was sheltered. But anyway, I just had a older woman assault me sexually, and that's always a bad story to tell, right? But the truth, then it's not like it hurt me and all this kind of stuff, or like I felt like I was ruined for life. I didn't feel that way. I did feel that way for a lot of people that would reject me for the story, and they probably rejected it right now. So it wasn't anything that happened all the way or anything. It just I just had a clean record. I never kissed anybody before. I saved my first kiss for marriage, age 19. This lady came at me, and I'm not going to tell any details, but she just all she did is, in my view, ruin my reputation, and I changed my major from musical studies because I wanted to go into musical ministry, but I changed it from that to a major outside of ministry. So And that's what I did, and I didn't know how to deal with it. But from that point, that's where I became interested in the culture, and I forgave the woman. I never saw her again, but I forgave her, and and I felt sorry for people that were out there because once that happened to me, I felt rejected by the church and stuff because they always talk about purity, purity, sexual purity, and all this, right? And that's everything. Well, what about the people that had it taken from them? But um, so, and then people I've told that even in growing up in church and stuff, they're like, "So big deal, whatever, all this stuff," and I'm like, well, in hindsight, I'm still confused by that. They didn't sympathize. They didn't follow bear your burdens with one another, share your problems. The Colossians 3, I think it is. They didn't know. I haven't found that in the church, in church people I know. I found judgment and saying, "You know what you're doing," all that kind of stuff. No, I didn't. I didn't know this person was going to be that type of person or anything. It's just I'm not going to explain it, but we ran into each other pretty quick. The so and the person hit on me fast, just touched on me real fast and stuff. And it wasn't asked for. She when she realized that I was uncomfortable, she quit. I mean, it wasn't, but it still to me it ruined my reputation. So, um, but what my view is that these people are probably stuck out there for the same reason. They're rejected, just like the way I feel rejected now. Just because that happened to me, I felt rejected by society that did everything right, supposedly. And but the point is the reason people that did everything right, supposedly, don't sympathize with me at all in that and didn't help me get counseling or whatever, is because they thought it was no big deal because they didn't save their first kiss for marriage. I did. So that was a big deal to me because I did save myself. I went out. I know I'm not, you know, the most, let's see, liked person nowadays, but back in the high school, I mean, I had some, I could have dated a lot if I wanted, or I could have dated around. There was women that liked me back then, young ladies. I'm young too back then. But as in the last 30 years, have I met women that like me? No, I've met the feminists. I've met feminists, and then plus, I was running. I was, with not successful, very successful. I was up and down, almost successful a few times. Never been very successful financially. So, but the women that I've run into in a lot of crowds, if I was successful, they would have stole it all in the first week. So, and then where's your money? It would have been like that. That's I ran into gangs and stuff a lot, and then I'd run into church folks who would judge me for it, and I didn't want those kind of women either. So they don't understand it. So I do understand there's a divide between that. I'm gonna. I mean, I used to not be comfortable saying I don't agree with the church, but I strongly disagree with the church's views today because basically they're obeying the gangs. Don't speak. They're obeying the Democrats. Don't speak. The gangs are the police enforcer of the Democrat Party that's telling people not to speak. So what they've done, and they've chased out the real police. They've chased out the good police, and they're trying to take the place of the police and tell you not to speak, or you're going to get hurt. Don't speak. Don't talk against. Don't talk for Jesus. Don't talk about gay marriage. Don't talk about whatever. I mean, you don't talk about how they're letting the drug cartels across the border and killing people on purpose. Don't talk about the death penalty. You're a killer. You want the death penalty? Well, you don't want us to talk about that because you want to give the death penalty whenever you want to. That's what they're doing. So they're the kind of police that want to give. The gangs are becoming the police, and they're running the police and trying to tell the police they can kill anybody they want to anytime they want to. And it's because we don't talk. Anyway, I might be running out of time, and so all that happens. But I guess my point was immigration. Where are these people going? 9 million people, 6 to 9 million people, the size of the whole city, Washington D.C., have come in the last 2 years or so. Yeah, and um, I guess I will. It is time for me to go, but I guess you have to. And where are they going? And I have to think about that, especially for a lot of people. Homeless people are going to get killed. Bottom line, there's going to be a lot of killings out in the homeless communities, and it doesn't matter if somebody's first brand new homeless, an American, is homeless. they're going to get killed. But by the way, so one more point though before the what about they're not giving veterans housing, they're not giving homeless people here housing, and they really care about these immigrants? No, they don't. They don't care about our own homeless. How are they going to care about some of these people unless they have jobs for them? But I think the main job they have for them is to bully them into voting Democrat. They're allowing them to have a license. So you see how hard it was, if you read my post, how hard it was for me to replace my license. And I went to a city, they downgraded my driver's license to regular ID. Then they tried to charge me a late fee. And I went back later after I got my glasses. I couldn't take the test that day anyway. So I, I had to get my glasses first, but I went there because it was convenient. It was close to where I was. So um, I went and got my license much later date, and I wasn't charged a late fee. The person that wanted to charge me a late fee was being prejudiced, and also told me I can't vote, can't sign up to vote. I didn't discuss that with the next person. You know why? Because I didn't sign up to vote. Didn't try because I don't plan to live there to vote. I have to sign up somewhere else to vote. And maybe they saw a Republican on there, and I had gone to change my to an independent. I need to double check that. I went to the voter registrations office after she says this shows you're Republican here, and I'm like, no, I'm independent. I changed it to independent. And they said, but well, for some reason the change didn't go through. So I did get a notice actually from the registrar's office that I can't uh, vote because of my address. So I went to. Uh, Eventually, I'll go back and see if they, in fact, if it went through and put me independent because I'm not a Republican anymore. I definitely lean Republican support, and I know I probably have to vote Republican in order for a decent candidate to win. But I count myself as independent because of my drug legalization views. I don't fit. Uh, I'm a big. They won't discuss that in the right way. They act like the homeless are the problem a lot of times on the Fox News, and they won't. That to me is not Republican. It's not Democrat either because Democrats pretend to be your friend. Democrats are like the predator. They pretend to be your friend, like they're gonna get you housing and this and that. But what they do is they purposely trap you, and surround you with gangs and stuff like that. That don't exist, and it's racist. It's racist if we say they exist. But they have them. Uh, they have all these rules that keep you. You can't go on vacation in those kind of places. If you're gone more than 2 weeks, you might lose your housing. So they make a prison to the housing, and they do all kinds of stuff. And a lot of times, that's not necessarily the rules, but it is a made up rule down the line because gangs end up getting hired to run these places. And so, in my opinion, that's partly my opinion, but it's what they do. And they filter. They have giving programs and all this kind of stuff. And they filter all the giving programs to reach only the people they want, and they actually get people in line and they snatch everything, but they do all those kind of things before somebody that's not in their circle gets anything. So a lot of the giveaways or the charity goes to the wrong people because all they're doing is stealing it from other people that need help, and they're just helping to keep their power there to bully people or whatever. They kill people and they do the poison drugs. They do all that kind of stuff. So um, do I? But from a spiritual standpoint, do I? Uh, am I against them? And even from a political standpoint, how do I feel about what should be there? How do you deal with that? I don't. Our system's messed up. But you got to start promoting not to steal people, to love your neighbor, treat your neighbor right. You got to talk to the cartels that way. I'm still trying to devise ways to talk that more instead of analyzing like I just did. So uh, maybe I get past that pretty soon, the analyzing side, and just talk to them like everybody else. And the people, and so these violent people that kill people and all that, or support killing people. Sometimes the women are the harder ones to talk down. If they're into that mode, they're not going to forgive as easy as men. But sometimes it's the other way around. But um, so, but I would say when I think of certain women that are higher up into that stuff, more of the conspirator types, yeah, they're not trying to calm down. For whatever, almost, but uh, so in a sense, I mean, they're feeding a lot of times they're feeding family more than A lot of the men are trying to survive because they've accepted the felonies for the women. I guess I don't know. That's it's different everywhere. The way it hits anybody can get in trouble and then have a certain limit on what they can do. And so, but but I don't know how that works. I don't really know. But the point is, you have to still send a message out for them to stop killing, despite what the drug laws are. You think, see, they think the drug laws are crooked. They think it was thrown on them, on poor people, black people and poor people. They think that the government threw it on them. It's not their fault. They're stuck in this and they can't do anything else. This is the only way they can make a living. A lot of people say, "Who cares if they think that? How dare them?" And I don't think that's the biggest sin in the world, to be honest. If they were doing it and selling safe stuff and not stealing people's money and hurting people, but most of them, I don't know about most of them, but a lot of them out there, they're out there to hurt people, steal from people. They enjoy the power. They money hungry. I don't understand. It doesn't even make sense to me why they steal so much and why they hurt people so much, even people that they know. It doesn't even make sense to me. But they have to have the message against that instead of always talking about bad about the drugs and all that. It's not the drugs that are bad in their pure form. That is, we obviously know what the drugs are bad for. We know what they do. We know what coffee does. We know what chocolate does to my forearms. We know that to my throat. We know to my energy, to my memory. We know what those street drugs do, right? But they don't steal from people. They don't stab people. They don't shoot people over money or anything like that. And that's more the problem than the drugs themselves. And then they poison them too, or they put stuff that black people out. They do that a lot. So and then rob them that way, blackmail people or whatever they do, all kinds of stuff. So that's the people that has to be addressed. And matter of fact, they should those kind of people should be um, held accountable for what they do. They should pay people back for what they rob. They should have to pay people back for what they rob. But we're far from that ever happening, as far as I know. But there are a lot of people in that though that aren't agreeing with the worst ones that do all those things, and they do say, they wake up a little bit because they're like, that's a nice person, and they did that to him or her, and so they do get to see some nice people get hurt by them and not think it's right, and they sometimes that might wake them up, But and like in my case, hopefully, I hope that it woke people up. Just when one person saw somebody treat me wrong, when I'm definitely, I say definitely the nicest person out there, right? I say I'm pretty much the nicest person. Anywhere I've gone, I've been the nicest person. If there's a need or something, then I can do it. But I mean, that's not a competition. I'm just saying, unfortunately, there aren't too many people here in the world that believe in loving your neighbor, even the people in church, because they do believe in loving your neighbor, unless you have to talk to a bad person to do it. You can't then there's some legitimacy to that. You can't put yourself in temptation's way. You don't want to put yourself in harm's way if you can help it, because there's other ways to do it. So in today's world, there's ways to escape, to avoid harm and help people at the same time. Now, back in the old days, in the Bible days, I mean, how'd you do it then? I mean, you had to just go cold turkey, and you don't know what you're running into if you're going to talk to people. And so, like about Christ and all that, or even helping them. But we have ways of knowing. But anyway, I'm distracted. I don't. This video is getting too long for the phone. The phone might not even work. It may cancel out my whole video. Frankly, if it gets even at this 43 minutes, it might do it. 44 minutes now. So a lot of that. So I'm still doing analysis. Maybe that's why nobody's watching my page, because maybe everybody disagrees with me. And but guess what? I know I'm right. So I mean, should I say it? I know I'm right. No, I do. I do. I know I'm right, and I'm looking for the right thing. And I do. And I think that these are keys because everybody is affected by these things. Everybody that acts like they hate somebody, they hate me for talking about it because they're scared they're going to lose their income because one person talks about it. I can talk about how bad it really is. So, uh, but the truth is, if they fix that and a couple of things, but people are scared if they fix that, they're not going to fix this. So if they fix that, It should fall into place to where they fix housing, make housing affordable and available, and there should be people talking about how their rentals shouldn't cost that much, even in the free market. Well, they can charge what they want to charge. Yes, they can charge what they want to charge, as long as they're getting people who will pay that price. That might be why they want the immigrants. They've raised the prices and on the rent, and a lot of people won't pay that price, and they go off and build themselves a house, and they skip the rental market. And so maybe they're hoping these guys get a good job and they don't mind paying their whole paycheck to the pay rent in somewhere because they don't know that they're getting ripped off. So maybe that's part of why they bring in all these immigrants, you know, and to have them vote, and maybe that can turn out good in some ways. If they do it that way, they can it can unless they keep raising the price, that can turn out good. Uh, Unless they use it to keep raising the price, because eventually those the people that have been through some real hard times from different countries, they'll have the patience to be in an apartment with no furniture for 3 4 months because they haven't. That's not hard for them. They're accustomed to some tough times that are genuinely tough times, not just because of uh, dodging bullets like we do here in America. So I mean, part of our tough times compared to some countries, I don't know how it is now because I think we've spread all the American drug cartel. I think has spread the drugs to all other countries just about. So I don't know how it is now, but it used to be they were genuinely poor without drug problems, without the gang problems in some countries. So when you bring people like that here, uh, they've actually been without furniture some places, right? So they can actually enjoy working a job, being in a nice indoors inside an apartment, no furniture first, and then and then eventually, little by little, get their furniture, you know. And so, I mean, for me, I hope the best for them. I hope that people that come here, the bad ones that come here with bad intent, some of them, they're so strong in their beliefs, they're not going to change their mind. But I hope there's some that are on the edge or bullied, that the ones that are bullied by those types. Hopefully, they get a chance to hear people like me talk and quit getting blocked by Facebook, uh, people like that, to where they can know where to go for help. They know where to go for rescue. They know that they're allowed to talk. They're supposed to be allowed to talk about religion, and that Christ is the only proven guide, and He taught us to love our neighbor, and that's where love comes from. And in the end, life is short. Whether you hate me or I hate you, or I don't hate you, but whether somebody hates me or whatever, or hates each other, it's irrelevant. Your life is short. They may kill you today, or you may live 40, 50 years, 60 years, and then you're still going to die. And then you go to heaven or hell. So they should be allowed to know that's a possibility. Why can't you know that's a possibility when you think you could tell us there's a possibility of reincarnation? You're allowed to think there's reincarnation, and there's no evidence of it. So why can't we tell you something exists that has plenty of evidence, tons of evidence? Pain and pleasure is an evidence of heaven and hell. So, and then we have a resurrection of Christ. That's the biggest evidence of heaven. That's the biggest evidence of life after death. Besides, Elijah has that's evidence of a heaven. He didn't die, so that he didn't defeat death. So it's not life after death for Elijah. He never died. So, but for Christ, it was life after death, and that's what we most of us face. It's going to be: do we live after we die? Now, we could be resurrected up like Elijah, and that's probably why that happened with Elijah, because there is a rapture that comes. So there are people that'll go up just like Elijah when Jesus comes back. So, anyways, they should be allowed to hear those things, including the bad guys. When I say bad guys, I mean the ones that are intently coming here for to hurt people or to just to help ruin the country, intending to use drug cartels to tear down country, hurt folks, and all that kind of stuff. So there is that part of the drug cartel. The part of the drug cartel I sympathize with is people who had it thrown on them as kids, cultures that had the drugs thrown on them by the Democrat side of government and all that. So I do have to sympathize with them. I also understand. They're not as self-righteous. They're not just there to kill. So when it comes to white gangs, a lot of them had an option. They did have an option. They were taught good things, and a lot of the white gangs, people that chose to be in white gangs, they did it because of some crazy religious belief and liking power, or because they love violence, they love power, and they were specifically there for that, or the money. They love so money so much they just didn't mind hurting people to get it. So that is a difference between white culture and black culture in general. Although white people, there are some white people that grew up around it too, and so they're in a sense a victim of growing up around it and and not being able to get away from it. Some of them grew up around it and wanted to get the heck away from it. Same in the black culture, same in the Hispanic culture. So some people, we've seen many who grew up in it and got as far away from it as they could, and they escaped, and that was good, right? But even those, the reasons sometimes were not because they believed in God, but because they wanted to have, they could see the mathematics of being able to make money and keep your money and have it protected. And it's not protected in the cartels. So, um, anyway, those are real things, and they're out there big time. If you're on foot, you learn it. You learn that's out there. If you've lost a car, or if you couldn't afford a car for a while, if you lost your license or anything else, you have to go on foot. You've seen the effects of people having to ask for money, and then if you carry a mean face on purpose and dare somebody to ask you, maybe you don't have many people ask you for money. But if you carry a friendly face like me, you see how many people ask for money and need, and they're stuck out there sometimes. Sometimes it's addiction, but they're stuck out there. They don't know much else. Uh, they A lot of them have been kicked out of shelters and can't get back in. It's not just they've had their chances at the shelters, or some of those shelters have crazy rules. I mean, but and then not just that. Sometimes you go in shelters and you run into Freddy Krueger in the shelter, and a lot of times you're stuck in there with those people who can't walk away. Usually, outdoors people can walk away from trouble, and but it's gotten worse out there. The gangs have spread their territories, and so there's not much safe. And that's what when I think about all the immigrants coming, that's that's who it's going to affect because hopefully there's enough good ones though. I don't know though. I don't know if they brought haters or lovers. Who knows? On purpose, you'd think, knowing them, they purposely brought haters because they call me a hater, and I'm a lover, right? Everybody knows that when they've been, even the ones that believe them and hate me at first, end up seeing if they give it a chance at all, they realize he's the peacemaker, and they're like, and then and some of them won't let that be heard. If they heard me talk about Trump or politics, they'd block me out and wouldn't find out I'm a peacemaker before they made their decision, because they've been brainwashed to think that. So anyway, I'm just talking reality, and I have to close out. I'm feeling rushed, and I can't think. So I'm gonna close out, and I know I said some stuff there that's worthwhile here and there. That's kind of long rambling. I don't care who doesn't agree with me. I know I've been out there because you know what, I don't believe in locking myself in away from the world, but maybe more now than I used to. But um, not totally. I don't believe in locking myself away 100%. I don't. All right. Except unless I'm still trying to save my life and do. If I'm trying to sing hymns, I'll do it for a minute. But all right. Adios.